everyone, and welcome to the Evermore NUFC YouTube channel. Tomorrow back with another Rumour Has It video where we talk about players that have been linked with moves to the club, particularly this case in the upcoming summer transfer window. Today we're focusing on a trio of goalkeepers, and as the resident goalkeeper, we thought it was only right that I took over the reins for today. Before we get started, I just wanted to say a massive thank you again for everybody for all the support you've shown in helping us get to 7,000 subs. And we're well on our way now to 8,000 already. If you do like what we do, remember to hit like on the video and hit subscribe as well as the notification bell to stay up to date with all our video releases. And again, thank you very much for that. So, as I said, we'll focus on goalkeepers today. And for me, goalkeeper is the first attacker. Now, that's a quote I've lifted directly from Johan Cruyff. But the man knew a thing or two about football and was part of the Dutch total football revolution. So he knows what he's talking about. It is a tactical trend now. And managers are looking for an 11th outfield player as much as they are looking for a goalkeeper. You only have to look at Pep Guardiola's immediate benching of Joe Hart at Manchester City when he took over to sort of see a massive example of that. Passing is now a key metric when looking at your goalkeeper plans, and it's a far cry obviously from the 80s and 90s, which some of us will remember, where goalkeepers in most cases would catch the ball and lump it upfield. Obviously not many successful passing stats from that era, absolutely. Sweeper keepers also matter, and Newcastle have a good one in Nick Pope. He's known for being good in that role. According to the Premier League site, Nick Pope lies 15th in the sweeper in the keeper sweeping stats this season with 11 sweeper clearances in 14 games. Now, bear in mind that he hasn't played since the 2nd of December, and it kind of shows where he's, how good he is in that sort of role. Dubravka, by comparison, has just 4 from 17 games, and Aaron Ramsdale, who we'll look at in a moment, has just 3 from his 6 games this season. Last season, Nick Pope was first with 38 successful sweeper clearances, and Ramsdale was 12th with 15. So again, it kind of just goes to show the level that Nick Pope has been playing at. While Pope is excellent at that sweeping part of his job, he does lack ability in the passing side, which was obviously the argument against him when he was signing for the club originally. So we'll have a look at the comparisons between 4 goalkeepers, I guess, now in terms of Nick Pope. And then that's against Ramsdale from Arsenal, Alexander Nübel from Stuttgart, who he's on loan at Stuttgart, and Seny Dieng from Middlesbrough, who's cropped up on the rumours over the last week. So first up is Aaron Ramsdale. Now, obviously, Ramsdale has lost his first choice status since the signing of David Raya in the summer. Obviously, it's a bit of controversial one for sure, and I think for me, I'm not sure Raya is a big enough of an upgrade, if any, on Aaron Ramsdale. You only have to look at the 2 moments from the Champions League quarterfinal this week to see that he's not an elite level. The positioning for the first Bayern goal, he rushes out, and then his reading of the penalty. I am sorry, but that is schoolboy stuff. I mean, he's dived before Harry Kane's anywhere near striking the ball. It absolutely, as a goalkeeper, I'm screaming at the television, wondering what on earth he's doing. It's awful. Anyway, totally off topic in that regard, but you can see from this sort of stats, Ramsdale does offer some positive traits. He is decent in the passing game. His passing stats are much higher than Nick Pope's in the comparison, but they're not still in that sort of Edison, Alisson levels that we've seen in the Premier League. He sits in the middle in terms of most of his percentile figures against comparable goalkeepers in the top 5 leagues, but his number of saves and his save percentage are low, sitting under the 20th percentile. For comparison, Nick Pope sits in the 58th percentile for saves and the 70th percentile for save percentage. So he does really sit quite high. For goals saved, which is post, and that disregards own goals, Ramsdale sits in the 6th percentile, while Nick Pope is in the 77th. Again, there's a huge gap between the two. For me, This is a no-brainer. Well, Ramsdale is seen as a better passer. He's not significantly better than Pope to justify a 30 to 40 million pound outlay. Transfer market value, as you can see, I have him at 21.4 million. His wage is around 120,000 a week. Now, the value feels low compared to what Arsenal will probably want to recoup for him. They paid initial 24 million for him, with I think it was rising to 30 million, depending on add-ons. And they'll want a profit. They're not going to want to take a loss on him. And I just can't see Newcastle spending that sort of money on a goalkeeper when there are bigger priorities in the squad. So for me, a no-brainer in terms of not going for him, not wanting to sign him, not at that particular sort of price. Definitely not. The next goalkeeper to look at is Alexander Nübel, I mentioned before, who's currently at Stuttgart on loan from Bayern Munich. Now, when Nubel signed for Bayern in 2020, there's some that suggested that he'd be the long-term successful for Manuel Neuer, and that may still be true. He's only had one real season at Bayern, and he just played the one league game before spending the last 3 seasons out on loan. He's loaned to Monaco for 2 seasons and then again to Stuttgart for this campaign. So for a comparable league, obviously the Bundesliga sits in those top 5 competitions. Nubel does show better stats than Ramsdale across the board, really. He sits much higher in terms of his sweeping capabilities and his general goalkeeping. Although he does fall behind again, Nick Pope, in terms of saves and save percentage stats. However, he's much closer to Pope in his overall play and his ability to sweep and contribute with the passing game is probably moves him slightly ahead in that particular area. Whether or not you'd see him as an upgrade, probably not. I think they're very, very similar. Nubel sits ahead, like I say, in passing, but I think general goalkeeping, I think Nick Pope would probably still get the nod. In terms of transfer fee, he only has a year left on his contract with Bayern, so I don't think transfer fee or wages would be an issue. It would be a relatively cheap deal. However, there is talk of Bayern wanting to extend his contract and perhaps giving him another year on loan, potentially at Stuttgart again. Obviously, Neuer is now 38 and reaching the end of his career. And Nubel has 10 years on him. And if Bayern do still see him as an ideal replacement, then they may go down that path again. So, although it does look a relatively cheap deal, I'm not entirely sure that one will be a starter from Bayern's perspective if they do want to keep him. And the last one, the last keeper to look at is the current Middlesbrough number 1, Seny Dieng. Now, he signed from QPR last summer for only 2 million after spending a few seasons at QPR, and I think he was there for 7 years. He spent 4 out on loan, and had the last couple of seasons playing, or the last 3 seasons playing in the Championship for QPR. So yeah, he signed for 2 million, and he's had a good season in the Championship this season, and again sort of caught the attention of numerous Premier League teams. I think even before he'd signed for Borough, sort of Spurs, Brighton, Brentford were all looking at him as a backup option, particularly Spurs looking as a kind of replacement for Larissa, I guess, as somebody to sit behind Vicario. So they were interested. Obviously, Brighton and Brentford, as I say, who'd lost David Raya. And then this season, I think, obviously, Newcastle have been linked, but Crystal Palace have also been reported to be interested in, as well as Ipswich, who are chasing promotion. So there are a number of teams who are looking at him. I think the one thing that massively goes in his favour, though, is the fact that he did score last season against Sunderland, a 92nd minute header to rescue a point towards the start of the season, if I remember rightly. That alone worth a transfer fee. Absolutely right. If it's not, I don't know what is. I think that goes well for every Newcastle fan. I've included the stats for Dieng, but you have to look at them for what they are, which is a comparison to goalkeepers in the next 14 competitions and not the top 5 as with the other 2. So it's not really a direct comparison. It gives you an idea of how he is playing, but he does score well in this regard. Sort of for the stats anyway. He sits in the 92nd percentile for post-shot expected goals per shot on target, and is in the 80s for his sweeping actions too. Well, he is the highest in terms of touches and passes attempted, so definitely comfortable in that area of the game. Transfer fee wise and things, like I say, he signed for 2 million last year. Transfermarkt has him at 1.7 million. Genuinely think it would be a relatively cheap deal if Newcastle were to go for him. He has 3 years left in his contract, and the rumoured fee is only around 4 million. Wages are likely to be comparable with the likes of Gillespie and Carriers, if a little higher, but still not so much of an effect on PSR and FFP. As a sort of conclusion then, I think Nick Pope is not the long-term answer. I think that's clear. I think he's the answer for now. He's never going to be an Edison, an Alisson, a Martinez, that sort of modern-day dual-role goalkeeper, the goalkeeper that can do all the basic stuff, but also play more of the sweeper, the part of the passing game. Pope is a fine goalkeeper, and he does definitely give his defence confidence. In that if they're making mistakes, he's there to support them and there to cover for them. Over recent months, weeks, you can't say the same for Martin Dubravka. I just think there are too many flaws in his game, and I think but for me, he's definitely one that probably will move on in the summer. But like I say, I think Pope is the answer for now, at least another season or two. Obviously, with Karius and Gillespie out of contract at the end of the season, more is needed in that area. And I think that the backup in terms of looking for a backup is key in the summer. I'm not especially convinced that a number one is needed, but definitely a backup or two. A younger goalkeeper maybe to come in. Obviously, the difficulty in attracting goalkeepers is game time. That's fundamental to them. Would the likes of Ramsdale want to come into a fight for the number one jersey when he's in the same battle with David Raya now? I just don't see him wanting to do that. Would Alexander Nübel want to do the same? You know, he signed for Bayern to be an understudy to Neuer and hopefully be the long-term successor to him. He's 27 now, and it just seems unlikely that he'd want to go anywhere to sit on the bench again. And having had first-team football regularly at Monaco and Stuttgart for the last 3 seasons, will he want to leave Bayern for another bench? I just don't see it. The other question is, will he assign another contract and with them and aim to be their number one in sort of 12 months' time or earlier, you know, as Neuer gets closer and closer to 40. Dieng, for me, I think, might be the backup answer. Not perfect, but he's experienced. He's got lots of game time behind him. He'd be a relatively cheap move. He has found a home at Borough this season, and obviously, if they may still make the playoffs this year, but I just think there are better sides in that mix, and a promotion seems unlikely, not impossible. But would he relish the challenge of heading to St James's Park and testing himself at a higher level? He's never played at that level, and I think that's one thing to maybe be cautious of, is he's never played at a higher level. You know, Championship is as high as he's gone. He's spent a lot of time there, so maybe I think it certainly is a backup. I think he'd be a decent backup, but there are potential issues with that, I guess. He'd obviously likely get game time in the cups, so the Carabao and the FA Cup. I think Nick Pope would obviously be the first choice for Premier League and for European games. Maybe, I guess, if depending on the European competition, I think if it's Europa League, I think Nick Pope would probably play as your number one. But maybe it's for the Conference League, you'd maybe play your reserve goalkeeper. I think we've seen that from others where they've played, certainly in the group stage, maybe a sort of a reserve goalkeeper just to give more game time. So maybe we see that. But like I say, he would be relatively cheap and not cause too many issues in terms of PSR or FFP. So, let us know what you think in the comments, and if there are any other goalkeepers you would target either as a number one or as a backup to Nick Pope. Obviously, we always like to hear from you, always like to engage with you through the comments as well. So let us know what you think. And as always, thank you for watching again. And if you haven't already, hit like on the video and subscribe. If you want to become a member, there is an option there too. And you can also support the channel by hitting the thanks button below as well. So yeah, thanks. Have a great day, guys. We'll be back with a Spurs preview probably in the morning, and then post match obviously on Saturday afternoon. It'll be early afternoon actually, with it being the early kickoff. And we'll have a few more transfer rumour videos to come as well. Obviously, they'll be coming thick and fast as we get closer to the end of the season, and the transfer window opening as well. So stay tuned, guys. So thanks again, guys. We'll take care. Bye bye.